Hey, this is David Plotz, CEO of CityCast. I have a favor to ask before we get to today's conversation. We're doing our annual listener survey, and it would really help us out if you took it. And even if you took it last year, we'd be grateful if you took it again, because we can't use last year's data. Please go to citycast.fm/survey to take the survey. It's only 7 minutes long, we know, because we timed it. That's citycast.fm/survey. And when you take the survey, you'll also be eligible to win a $250 Visa gift card and CityCast swag, that great CityCast swag. citycast.fm/survey.
Today on CityCast Nashville, it's time for our Friday News Roundup. We're breaking down this week's biggest news stories in town with Nashville Scene columnist and CityCast Nashville contributor Nicole Williams, along with our executive producer, Whitney Pastorek. Together, we covered the tragic incident at Antioch High School on Wednesday morning, where a student opened fire in the cafeteria, killing himself and another student. Nicole also updates us on the latest from Metro Council and a new bill from Tennessee Republicans that could threaten local officials with jail time or removal from office. We'll explain why. And finally, we try to end on a lighter note. Could a Nate Bargatze-themed Nateland amusement park really be in our future? Stick around to find out. It's Friday, January 24th. I'm your host, Marie Cecile Anderson, and this is what Nashville's talking about. The biggest story today in Nashville is, of course, the tragic event that took place Wednesday at Antioch High School. What we know so far, 2 students died and 2 more were injured. The suspect, 17-year-old Solomon Henderson, opened fire in the cafeteria and killed 16-year-old Jocelyn Correa Escalante before shooting and killing himself. Another male student was transported to the hospital with a graze wound and a 4th with minor facial injuries from falling. Henderson partially live-streamed the incident from his Kick account, and the Tennessean reports that he posted a 300-page document on Twitter with a mix of alt-right and Nazi paraphernalia and explicit photos from previous school shootings. We'd like to uplift the victim. Jocelyn loved soccer and was a really good student. She obviously was loved by her family. The photos of her online show a beautiful young Guatemalan woman in a quinceañera dress, filled with joy whose life was just getting started. Her family says she was bright and compassionate and dreamed of being a doctor.
Maria, I think she's such a example of exactly the kinds of kids who go to Antioch High School, right? You know, an incredibly diverse high school. Her family appears to only speak Spanish. Mm-hmm. They gave some interviews to WSMV and News Channel 5. You could hear the grief in their voice, speaking about the beautiful Jocelyn, who they've lost, and what a good girl she was. And so in these moments, it just absolutely breaks your heart that a 16-year-old is a victim of gun violence, which is what this is. There's no sense, in my opinion, in trying to see anything more into it than somebody who was mentally unwell had access to a gun and used it to kill somebody.
I think it also says something about the continued radicalization of kids, particularly on the internet. This is an epidemic with young men, as we know. And given the tenor of the alleged shooter's writings, you really see that coming through. And it's a scary time. I think back to when I was in high school and we never did an active shooter drill. It was never a thought in my mind that that could happen.
And it is this unfettered, as I mentioned, access to guns, which our state legislature, Marie, you talked about this yesterday, they stubbornly refuse to do anything, even though over 80% of Tennesseans in survey after survey have said that they are in favor of common sense gun reform. I know we've got a special session coming up from the legislature. Will they add this onto that, perhaps?
They certainly will not.
Oh.
They will be speaking about school vouchers, Hurricane Helene relief, which is incredibly important, and immigration, because apparently every state is a border state.
How fun that 2 of those things are like directly targeting Antioch High School, right? School vouchers, taking money away from the public school system. And immigration, we're talking about a school where I'm sure a lot of parents are immigrants who are just trying to give their kids the best life humanly possible. So what a delightful time for those topics to come up.
Yeah, I wish they would be doing something to support the parents instead of potentially targeting the parents.
Marie, we talked about it yesterday, but you are such a passionate advocate for gun control. As we mentioned, you were down at the Capitol a bunch after the Covenant shooting. And I want to ask if you feel the way that I do, which is that we can't do anything that these people don't care that guns are killing people left and right. We're just forced to live in a society with them.
Right. It feels crazy making, almost, living in Tennessee and shouting into the abyss of, shouldn't these people care? What I pride myself on living here in Nashville is it does feel like there are some really amazing people here in our city and our city council. Can't wait to get into it with you, Nicole. But the people really do want change, and that it actually feels like we can make change in Nashville. I believe it was the Tennessean that put out an article also about what the faith leaders in our town are saying and how to cope with things. So, I mean, if you are of some religion and have faith, I do find comfort in that and knowing that there are others that feel the same way I do.
Do we know anything more about the survivor?
News Channel 5 reported that he comes from an Egyptian family. It is such a testament to the need for proper language access in communications in this city when communicating about emergencies, disasters. And I am a little bit concerned with some of the reports that the messaging around this did not take into consideration families who don't speak English as a first language.
The Tennessee Lookout, in their report on the shooting, mentioned that Antioch High School, there are 44 languages spoken.
Wow.
Which is incredible and obviously difficult from a messaging perspective when you, as like the school system, are in the midst of the crisis. But we have got to do better about figuring out ways to communicate with people, because it's not like this doesn't happen.
Right.
And it's not like we don't have other emergencies that happen in this city.
We saw the same thing with the tornado in Madison.
Yes.
December 23. We saw people step up yesterday, just individuals to help out. Marie, I know you're friends with Melissa Alvarez from the Tennessee Hispanic Action Network, who spoke to News Channel 5 and said she showed up at the reunification site with a bullhorn to try to help translate. And she said there was only one Spanish-speaking MNPD officer on site. A friend of mine who also went down to help translate said that there were even fewer resources available for Arabic or Somali-speaking parents. I feel like we can only keep screaming about this up to a certain point. I do know that Mayor Freddie O'Connell sent his mayor's budget memo on January 13th, and it does name language access as a priority. The memo reads, Mayor O'Connell's investment priorities within this frame will be ensuring a city that works for all Nashvillians. And under that, one of the bullet points reads, furthering customer service, including addressing language access. So while there's nothing specific attached to that, no numbers or anything in terms of how much will be spent in order to ramp up language access in this town across all aspects of Metro, I am heartened by the fact that it's in a memo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we'll have to see what the school board does as well, because they obviously have a lot of autonomy over their budget. So I'll be interested to see if the school board's proposed budget addresses language access in some way, at least more than it has in the past.
The amazing team at Nashville Noticias, a local Spanish language online news outlet, have posted a verified GoFundMe for Jocelyn Correas' family. It's posted in Spanish with an English translation that reads, the family of 16-year-old Jocelyn Diana Correa Escalante is facing an unimaginable tragedy. Her parents, hardworking members of the community, dedicated their lives to giving their children the opportunities they never had. Now their dream of seeing Jocelyn graduate and achieve her goals has been cruelly cut short. As they grieve this devastating loss, Jocelyn's family is raising funds to honor her memory by transporting her body back to Guatemala, where she can rest in peace surrounded by loved ones. The funds will also help ease the burden of daily expenses as they navigate this heartbreaking time. Your support, whether through donations or by sharing their story, would mean the world to this grieving family. Together, we can help find solace and ensure Joseline's light continues to shine. We'll include a link to that GoFundMe in the show notes.
Do you plan your vacations based on whether you can speak the local language? With Babbel, language no longer has to be the barrier. I'm David Plotz, the CEO of CityCast, and I went to Mexico City a couple of years ago with my girlfriend, who's a native Spanish speaker, so I just let her do all the talking, like all of it. I adored the city, and now I'm going to go back in a couple of months, but with my college roommates, who are a bunch of middle-aged men, none of us Spanish speakers. When I was younger, I might not have been bold enough to do that, but now I'm not anxious because Babbel has me covered. Thanks to Babbel, I know how to order a taxi, how to give directions, how to order in a restaurant, all the small and useful bits of language that make international travel easier. Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons, handcrafted by over 200 language experts, get you to begin speaking your new language in 3 weeks or whatever pace you choose. And because conversing is the key to really understanding each other in a new language, Babbel is designed using practical, real-world conversations, especially of the sort you need while traveling. Food, how to get places. Babbel's tips and tools are inspired by the real-life stuff you actually need when communicating. With a focus on conversation, you'll be ready to talk wherever you go. So I hope I'll see you in Mexico in a couple of months. Or, as we say, espero verte en Mexico en un par de meses. So let's get more of you talking in a new language. Babbel is gifting CityCast listeners 60% off subscriptions at babbel.com/CityCast. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/CityCast. Spelled BABBEL.com/CityCast. Babbel.com/CityCast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Nicole, you're usually here to help us understand what's happening at Metro Council. They had their first meeting of 2025 on Tuesday night, which seems like a very long time ago. Can you quickly walk us through what happened? Tell us everything. Give us the tea.
Yeah, so Vice Mayor Angie Henderson opened the meeting with a little reminder to the council members of the oaths that they took when they assumed office. Basically, she just wanted to remind everyone, like, we have to do what we can here at the local level to make life better for Nashvillians, which was important coming the day after the inauguration.
Right.
But the bulk of the meeting was actually spent discussing a resolution that is requesting the police department to come up with a plan for better traffic enforcement. As you all may know, people die on our roadways way more often than they should.
Yep.
And we have sort of adopted programs as a city and invested in attempting to address that on the front end with engineering, traffic calming, et cetera. But some council members are concerned about what they view as a lack of enforcement for people who are breaking traffic laws. Councilmember Jeff Eastlick from Old Hickory introduced this resolution, and he has been yelling into the void about this issue for months now. And the resolution was an attempt to basically get the council on record saying, hey, we need more enforcement. But as you also may remember, if you were in Nashville around 2016, we had an incredibly high number of traffic stops, 7.7 times the national average.
And that's when the Driving While Black came out.
Yes, Gideon's Army released the Driving While Black report in 2016 that essentially analyzed data from traffic stops over a 4-year period and showed that not only were they not doing anything to reduce crime, they were also incredibly disproportionately targeted at minority communities, so Black and brown people. And so Councilmember Quante Toombs, who is the chair of the council's minority caucus, introduced her own substitute resolution to essentially overtake Councilmember Eastlick's resolution and replace it with her language. The minority caucus had expressed concerns about the possibility that this resolution might encourage sort of an overcorrection and a pendulum swing back to the days where we had this huge number of traffic stops that were creating trauma for minority communities, low-income communities. And so her resolution, which did pass, really focused on, we want the police to focus on reckless driving, DUIs, that sort of thing, so that we're not just indiscriminately stopping huge numbers of people to no real end other than making life difficult.
My friends and I talk about this all the time, about the amount of speeding in our town. Like, why aren't the police pulling over these reckless drivers? And we have seen a decrease in people being pulled over for this.
I thought something that Quante put in her substitute bill that made a lot of sense was the tweak in the language from increased traffic enforcement to improved traffic enforcement.
Yes.
That felt like a really important semantic change.
Absolutely. I think everyone agreed and realized that there was a possibility that by calling for an increase in traffic enforcement, that we sort of backslide into the maybe intentional, maybe not, but definitely discriminatory policing. But Councilmember Eastlick wanted everyone to know that we do have a Black police chief. And so apparently that should make us feel just a little bit better.
We did it, everybody.
We did it.
Okay, let's move on to something good, ? Nicole, I know they also voted on some of the Metro Arts grant funding. The short version is they finally got their grant funding formula figured out for fiscal year 2025, which ends in June.
Yeah, we're about 7 months into fiscal year 2025.
Ashley Batchelder, formerly of the Metro Human Relations Commission, she has been moved over to now be the interim director of Metro Arts, and she's been intimately involved in this process since the complaint, as she was a big part of negotiating the conciliation agreement for the artists who filed that Title VI complaint. But do we feel like this formula 7 months into the fiscal year is at least a step in the right direction?
Well, it's a step, that's for sure. I think everyone understood that they're just sort of trying to get this out the door, get this approved, focus on making it better for the next funding cycle, which will start before we know it. A lot of the people who applied for these Thrive Awards, which are project-based awards, they haven't even started those projects because they don't have the money. Like, they can't front the money, most of them, to start the project not knowing whether or not they're going to get the money back from Metro.
Right.
So we have a funding formula, and we've sort of hopefully worked out the kinks of the process of getting that approved by the Arts Commission and then to council for their approval. So ideally, this will go more smoothly for the upcoming fiscal year 26 funding cycle.
And then I know we're also seeing the return of a controversial bill at the next meeting on February 4th.
Well, on first reading on Tuesday was a bill from Councilmember Rollin Horton to enact, quote unquote, guardrails around the Fusus cameras.
Don't say it. Oh, no.
Yeah. So
they're back.
As you may remember, the council voted down a proposal for what's essentially a private surveillance network for the cops to sort of tap into that. And so now Councilmember Horton, who voted against Fusus when it came before the council, is saying, well, if it's going to pass, let's put some rules in place so that the police don't infringe on our civil liberties. So that's a thing, and it's going to be on second reading at the next council meeting. The legislation is weak. It's weak. It asks the police essentially to police themselves, which we love to do.
Right.
And it sort of is divorced from the context of everything that's happening at the state and federal level. And the idea that we would be able, with just local regulations, to sort of beat back the tide of state and federal law enforcement officials who are most likely going to try to co-opt local police resources for immigration enforcement. It's just not reflected in the legislation.
It's madness. And my opinion is that while last time it was like, no, don't worry, there will be guardrails. And this time it's, here are the guardrails. We're rejecting the premise of that concept because the guardrails aren't going to matter.
Exactly.
Doesn't matter what the guardrails are or say. They're going to be irrelevant.
Yes.
I would like to point out that the mayor of Nashville TN Instagram account, which is the official account for Freddie O'Connell, he has gotten pretty effectively ratioed on Instagram this week.
Oh, yes.
I did not know that that was something that was possible on Instagram.
Yeah.
Ratioed, for those who don't live online like I do, is when you have more comments than likes on a post. He is getting savaged by the people of our city over a post about, here's why the new Fusus guardrails are going to be great.
Yeah, and it's wild. Like, I've been deeply involved in the anti-Fusus conversations, and I don't know like half of the people who are commenting saying we do not want this, which is really heartening to know that like it's not just my little bubble of people who are concerned about this. So we'll see what happens. Councilmember Horton has indicated an openness to amendments. Mm-hmm. Again, we could create the most beautiful regulations ever, and it doesn't matter.
All right. Well, speaking of blowing through guardrails, the Nashville Banner put out yesterday a story on a new bill from Tennessee Republicans that threatens local officials with jail time and or removal from office if they support, quote, sanctuary cities, which are already prohibited by state law. But sure, okay, this seems like it's pointed straight towards Nashville. Nicole, please, I just want to unleash you on this. What are your thoughts?
First of all, the idea of jailing an elected official for a vote that they take, that's
never been done, right? I mean, it has in history,
not in America.
Not in America, right?
Not yet. And secondly, these policies are already preempted by the state. So even if you voted yes, it doesn't matter because they can't go into effect. Like, they have no validity in the state of Tennessee. Thirdly, the idea of quote unquote sanctuary city policies is just so ill-defined that really the goal here is just to freak out local elected officials so they don't even try to reassure their local immigrant communities that they will be safe here despite all of the like executive orders, the executive action, and, you know, terror that is about to come down from the federal government. The state government is like, we see you that, and we raise you one bill about putting local elected officials in jail.
Right.
And I honestly dare anyone to put Councilmember Zulfat Suara or Sandra Sepulveda in jail. They will become a national hero so quickly, it's going to give the Republicans whiplash.
Yep.
The bill also has incentives for local law enforcement to participate in the federal 287G program, which is, it basically deputizes local law enforcement to become federal immigration officials in effect.
Neat. I love when they say incentives because it's like you get an extra cookie at lunch if you participate in this hateful effort. Here's some stickers.
It's going to be some money. It's going to be some money, and that's hard to turn down.
It's true.
So, how concerned should we really be about this? Because I know we're laughing about it, but is this really something that he can...
I'm not laughing.
Well, yeah.
I'm trying to laugh because I don't know what else to do.
Right. That's true.
Right. I'm worried. Like, this is scary. This is authoritarian type stuff, y'all. Literally threatening duly elected, democratically elected officials with a felony charge, jail time, and removal from office for taking a vote.
Good news now?
Can we desperately? I just want to go to good news. Good news time, folks.
Please take us there. Take us there.
Y'all need a little good news jingle. Like, da-da, da-da, good news.
That's so good. Da-da, good news.
We're going to use that from now on for 2025. Thank you, Nicole. We'll send you residuals in the mail.
Oh, great.
Yes, finally, some good news. Family-owned Silver Sands Soul Food Cafe reopened its doors this week after being closed for 10 days due to an ongoing dispute with a new neighbor. For 75 years, Silver Sands on Locklear Street has been serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but Metro Codes learned that a grease vent off the back of the restaurant was dangerously close to the new home next door. I think it was like 6 inches from this new build. So unfortunately, they had to shut down. Sophia Vaughn, third-generation owner, she claimed that, this grease vent had been installed decades ago, and it was under her impression that she was grandfathered in and wouldn't have to relocate it. It cost her $10,000 to put it on the roof. Hannah McDonald kind of dove into this story and reported for Channel 5 News. She called the developer, and apparently the developer said that they would pay for the relocation of the vent and back and forth and whatever. No matter what, it's been replaced. The doors are open. You can go get your meat and threes. And it really was neat to see that people showed up in herds on Tuesday when it did open. The line was out the door. Equity Alliance and other groups were out taking videos and showing the support. So pretty neat that Nashville community showed up.
That's awesome. Not awesome that they tried to put a house on top of her restaurant, but still awesome.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm also excited about the community fridge, Marie.
Yes, the community fridge at Dark Matter is back.
It's the Nashville Community Fridge. It is outside Dark Matter, 1111 Dickerson Pike. It's a place that you can come and get things if you need them. It's also a place that you should donate things if you have them. They've got a list of what you can and cannot donate. Things that they would love for you to donate are things like fresh fruits and vegetables, sealed packaged foods, eggs, cured, canned, or deli meats, pasteurized cheeses or yogurts. All donations have to be labeled with the date they were donated. It's there for everybody. And it's super cool. It was really, really necessary during the pandemic. And I'm concerned that it's going to be just as necessary now. What with the price of eggs and all.
Oh, but Trump's going to lower the price of eggs.
They're coming down, folks.
They're coming down. Nope. All right. On to the next good news,
Finally.
you guys. I'm so excited about this. Dollywood is getting some competition, maybe. Nashville native, Grammy-nominated comedian Nate Bargatze isn't joking about building Nateland, y'all. His very own themed park.
No.
The idea was inspired by his favorite childhood theme park, good old Opryland, USA, where he worked until it closed in 1997. It hasn't been confirmed. This is just all,
Is he replacing Opry Mills with this?
I know that's what
buying?
That's my question because, he wants to put it where Opryland was, or in theory.
Whitney's in favor if he replaces Opry Mills. Is that the vibe I'm getting?
It's a terrifying place.
I love Nate Bargatze. Like, he is so funny. I love it because I can show my parents his comedy routines without wincing because he is a clean comedian. So very family friendly, very funny. And he's from here.
Right.
He's from Old Hickory, actually.
I just don't know if we need a theme park in Nashville. We already have a lot of things going on in our town.
We are a theme
already
park.
attracting
Let's be
tourists.
honest.
We are
a theme
No,
park.
I want it. I want it.
But I mean,
I want it.
Here's what I want. I want Nate Bargatze to come on CityCast Nashville and tell us all about this.
yeah.
So
Okay.
we'll have you back on, Nicole, if we get him.
Fantastic. Oh my God.
yeah.
I would die. I know. Die.
We're going to do it. We're putting that out into the universe. 2025 is the year that Nate Bargatze comes on CityCast Nashville and explains himself.
Make it happen.
You heard it here first. And I just want to close out today by saying that Rose Pepper Cantina's sign currently reads, "It literally feels like January 85th. It's been a long month, y'all.
Deep sigh.
Deep, deep sigh. Insert Nicole's little jingle. Boop, boop, boop.
Dun-dun, dun-dun. Good news.
It's going to be a much needed weekend for a lot of people. Try to spend it with people you love.
Yeah. Say goodbye to dry January. That's all I got to say.
Say goodbye to dry January.
Nope, it's ending early. All right. Thank you all for listening. And Nicole, again, always a pleasure.
Love to be here.
That's all for today here on CityCast Nashville. I'm your host, Marie Cecile Anderson. Our executive producer is Whitney Pasterek. Our producers are Daniel Sumstein and Patrick Emile. Our Hey Nashville newsletter editor is Margaret Kingsbury, and our theme music is by Prof Jenkins. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell your friends, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our Hey Nashville newsletter. We'll be back Monday morning with more news from around the city. Toodles!